Hello and welcome back to the Mass Success Seminar online for Tri-C Metro, Cleveland, Ohio. Today I want to talk about how to add and subtract numbers, how to think about positive numbers, how to think about negative numbers. Because the way the book explains it is a little wonky. So I'm going to show the book way of explaining it, and then I'm going to show a different way of explaining it. So add, subtract, positive, negative. Sometimes they're the same. When you're translating just one number out of a bigger problem, usually if you're adding it, you can think of that as a positive number, and usually when you're subtracting it, it'd be a negative number. So here's what I'm talking about. 5 minus 2, easy example. So there's no plus sign here, but it's implied that this is a positive 5. I gotta make that, there we go, positive 5. And this, since we're subtracting, technically we're subtracting a positive 2, but there's a special property with subtracting because it's the operation of combining two numbers together. So is addition. When there's a plus sign in between two numbers, that's the process of combining those two things together. So if you asked me, I would say, well, this is a positive 5 and this is a negative 2. So, and again, if this is confusing or unclear, just bear with me. I will explain it in a different way soon. But the way that Pearson is going to explain it is instead of having 5 and taking off 2, whenever you see a subtraction symbol, so I'm going to say subtraction only. That's when you keep, change, and change. What does that mean? Well, it means you keep this number, you change that sign, and you change this number to its opposite. So instead of subtracting off 2, you're adding the opposite. Adding opposite. This is a little cluttered. I mean, you get where the keep, change, change goes. So 5 minus 2 could also be thought of as 5 plus negative 2. So a lot of students ask me, what's the difference between subtraction and a negative number? And really, it's just that adding and subtracting is a process, where positive and negative is, I guess, a quality of the number. Kind of like the sky is blue or it is cold. Those aren't combinations of two things. It's just you're talking about one thing. But when you throw yourself into the mix, or maybe like the sky is blue when the sun is high, you're mixing two things together. That's when adding and subtracting comes in. So if you're just talking about one number, what is 5? Is 5 positive? Is it negative? Well, it's positive. But if I'm combining it with another number, it's either going to be adding or subtracting. All right. So I'm going to show a few more examples of just this. Let me clean up the board a little. Remember, keep, change, change. And if this way doesn't make sense to you, I don't blame you. It's not the most intuitive way of trying to make sense of adding and subtracting, but this is the way Pearson teaches it. So I'll cover a different way in a sec. Let's do, how about like 2 minus 5? So the 2 is positive and the 5 is negative. So how can we organize that? Well, you keep the first number, you change the sign in the middle, and then you change the second number to its negative counterpart. This is only for organizational purposes because now what you can do, and this is kind of the meat and potatoes of the problem. I should make a link in below, meat and potatoes, 4 minutes 50 seconds. So now when you're combining these, you want to stack the larger absolute value number on top. So 5 has a bigger absolute value than 2. And remember, since there's no sign right here, this is really a positive 2. So now this gets into how do we combine these two? Well, if they have two different signs, you find the difference. So here's negative and a positive. So you can think of it as 5 minus 2, which if I just asked, if a hobo came up to you on the street, hey buddy, what's 5 minus 2? You'd say 3 and then get away from me, or maybe you'd give him change or something. But the thing is, this 5 has the greater absolute value. So we have to keep it negative. I know, pretty crazy. But the reason they do the keep change change is so you can organize it vertically like this. That's the whole point. When you organize it vertically like this with the greater number on top, then you can see whether or not they're the same sign, different signs. How do you deal with that? So I'm going to be a little more detailed with what I'm talking about. So same sign, therefore find sum, keep the same sign. Different sign, find the difference. Keep greater sign. Keep greater sign. All right. And my boss loves to change this into a jingle. Same sign, find the sum, keep the same sign. Same sign, find the sum, keep the same sign. Different sign, find the difference, but you keep the greater sign. So that one doesn't exactly fit with the whole consonants thing, but different signs, find the difference. What does difference mean? Subtraction. Keep the greater sign. So the bottom here, I'm going to do something like, what if I put a negative number first? Negative 7 plus 2. How about negative 7 minus 2? So we got two different examples. So negative 7 plus 2. We have a plus in between, so we don't need to worry about doing keep change change. That's only when there's a negative in between. Put the greater number on the top, lesser number on the bottom. They have different signs. Find the difference. So what is 7 minus 2? It's 5, except you keep the sign of the greater number, which you always stack on top. How about negative 7 minus 2? So here's where you want to do keep change change. Keep change change. So I'm going to change this to a plus. I'm going to change this 2 to a negative. Only for the purpose of organization. If you look at this and you kind of know what to do with it, that's fine. So if I have negative 7 and I'm taking away 2, they're both the same sign. Same sign, find the sum, keep the same sign. So add them together. Both negative. What is 7 plus 2? Well, it's 9, but both are negative, so your answer is going to be negative. And I ran out of room at the bottom, so I couldn't stack them vertically. I'm sorry. But hopefully this illustrates how to combine positive integers, negative integers, how to think about positive and negative when you're thinking about addition subtraction. Remember, addition subtraction is always just the operation of combining two numbers. So it was cold because the wind was blowing. Two things are a consequence here. But when you're talking about whether a number is positive or negative, that's just a quality of one number. And this will come in handy later when we talk about fractions and decimals. But thanks for tuning in. This one was a little bit longer. I feel like I had to be more detailed. You know what? I promised that alternative way. Let me do that really quick because it's a lot faster in my opinion. And a lot of people that have learned the keep change change way have been confused if they understood it before. I was. So like 2 minus 5. All right. So the Pearson way is keep, change, but you know what? I just noticed that this is a positive 2. Since I'm subtracting 5, I could also treat it as a negative 5. And then I can stack those vertically on the side. And now you can follow the same rules. Different signs, find the difference. 5 minus 2 is 3. The greater sign is negative. So it's just a little bit shorter. If we're talking about it purely on the number line, and this is the purest way to talk about it in my opinion, 2, 1, 2. So that means I go here. Now I'm going to go into the negative direction by 5. So I moved into the positive direction by 2. So now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what is this? 1, 2, 3. This is 3 in the negative direction, so your answer is negative 3. So plus 2 minus 5. So what's the difference between a positive number and adding? What's the difference between a negative number and subtracting? Well, adding and subtracting is you're combining two things together. We have two numbers, one's positive, one's negative, and you can really organize that any way that you can sort it out in your mind. But now I will conclude. Math Success Seminar Online. This was adding and subtracting integers, and I'll catch you next time.